As Mugman and Cuphead were fighting the devil, they finally did it. They won. They got all the souls back. But then something strange would happen. Mugman and Cuphead would start to shake. As a portal would open up, they would fall through it. As then they would both stand up. As Cuphead would say, "Where we are, Mugman?" Mugman would say, "I don't know." As then they would start to walk around. They were lost, the two brothers in a strange land. The sky was red. The buildings around them seemed so off, different. As Cuphead and Mugman began to walk around, unsure of what to do or unsure where to go, they would just walk aimlessly with nothing in mind. As Cuphead and Mugman continued to walk, eventually they would hear news. News about different things going on. It seemed like they were in hell, but Mugman said, "This doesn't look like hell. This doesn't look like anything," as they were used to such old-timey things, like 1930s and 40s, not whatever the heck this modern stuff is. It seems so crude. It seems so different. As Cuphead and Mugman would sit down and begin to talk, they didn't really have much to do, so they decided to get a job, but they didn't know where to look. As they both kept on looking and searching, eventually they would end up bumping into someone. Cuphead would turn around, and Mugman would too, as it was Alastor. Alastor looked at them, as their mannerisms seemed like old cartoon characters. He still preferred radio, but he would see some of those old cartoons, the ones that Walt Disney made, and reminded him of that, as Alastor would smile and say, "Huh, you guys seem old-timey like me." As then Mugman would say, "I'm not old." Cuphead would say, "I guess you're the only one who seems normal." Alastor would say, "Huh, interesting. You seem old-timey, yet you just got here. What a strange anomaly. Huh. Oh well. Anyway, what do I owe the pleasures of you two coming to me?" As Cuphead would say, "We're kind of looking for work." Mugman would say, "Yeah." As Alastor would say, "I can give you work. All you have to do is make a deal." As then Cuphead and Mugman would say, "No, we've learned our lesson." As Alastor would say, "Huh, I already have a lesson about that. You two are contradicting yourselves more and more. Alright, just follow me. I'll give you a job, free of charge." As then Cuphead would say, "But aren't you supposed to pay us?" Alastor would say, "Just follow me." As then they would follow Alastor into the hotel. As they followed Alastor in, Vaggie would say, "Who are those two? Are they guests? Or are there more of those strange people you bring in?" Husk would say, "I heard that. You know he brought me in too." Vaggie would say, "My point stands." Alastor would laugh and say, "No. Well, I guess they are guests. They're looking for a job, so I thought I'll just pawn them off on you." As then Alastor would walk away. As Charlie would say, "So, do you want to work or do you want to be guest?" As Cuphead would say, "Work." Mugman would say, "Guest." As they looked at each other, said, "Brother, what are you talking about?" "Well, I'm kind of tired of working. Besides, it'd be nice to relax here at this hotel, but that would probably cost money." Charlie would say, "Money? Do you know what this hotel is?" Mugman would say, "We just got here." Cuphead would say, "Yeah." As Charlie would go, "Oh, well, I guess that makes sense." "Oh, welcome to the Happy Hotel," Charlie would say, as then she would start to sing about the hotel, as she put her passion into it, as she would sing about it, as she would sing about everything she loved about it here, about how she worked on everything here. And as she sang and sang and sang, Cuphead and Mugman got into it and began to dance and sing along. They started to like the music. As then Angel would say, "Huh, someone actually liked one of Charlie's songs." Husk would say, "Yep. How long do you think they'll make it?" Husk would say, $10 on a month. Angel would say, "You're on." I say 2 months. As they continued to watch, Mugman and Cuphead both clapped. As they said, "Encore, encore," Charlie would say, "Thank you." As Cuphead and Mugman would both look at each other, as Mugman would say, "What do you think, brother?" Cuphead would then go, "Well, I think we should stay." As then they would stay at the hotel. As then a few more days would pass, as they would start to get to know everyone. One day, Cuphead was talking to Husk, while Mugman was up there with Angel. As Cuphead would say, "So, could I have a drink, please?" Husk would say, "Sure. What do you want?" "I would have an old-timey..." Husk would say, Stop. None of that goofy nonsense. Tell me a real drink," as he had pointed up a list of drinks. As then They would order a drink, as then he would drink some of it and pour the rest into his cup, and then shoot it at the wall, breaking it. As he said, "Oh no, I didn't mean to do that. Crap, crap, crap." Husk would say, "What did you do?" "Sometimes I get overfilled and I need to spill some things out." As Husk would say, "Ah, you're unbearable." As then we cut to Angel and Mugman. As Mugman was sitting down bored, wanting something to do, as Angel would walk up to him and say, "Hey, how old are you? Like, I wanted to flirt with you, but, I have to get that age right." And then Mugman would say, "Well, the developers of the game said I am a kid adult, and I don't really know what that means, so we're just going to play it safe and not flirt." Angel would say, "Game? What are you talking about?" Mugman would say, "I don't know." As then Angel would sigh, as they would both sit down and talk. Angel would say, "So, no one here really willingly joined this hotel." "Well, I did, but I was trying to escape from something. Are you?" Mugman would say, "Nope, I'm simply just bored. And being here isn't so bad." He would smile and sit down. As his legs would move up and down, Angel and Mugman continued to talk. As Mugman would talk about his life and about how he made a deal with the devil. As Angel would say, "Lucifer? Yep, that's the one. But he's not hairy and has horns." Mugman would say, "Of course he does. He's the devil, silly." As then he would walk away. As Angel would say, "Okay, I don't know what he's on, but he's on something." As Mugman would walk down, Cuphead would be running upstairs, as Vaggy would be chasing him. Mugman would say, "What happened, brother?" Cuphead would say, "I don't want to talk about it." And Vaggy would say, "Well, you're going to have to talk about it. You can't go around destroying stuff." Alastor would walk in and say, "I can just fix it in a couple seconds, right? That's not the point. The point is, if you're a guest and if you want to be redeemed, you got to behave." As then Cuphead would apologize, as Charlie would walk in and say, Hey, Vaggy, it's all right. It's their first couple of days. Just let them off the hook this time." Vaggy would say, "Let them off the hook. They can't be destroying our property. Even if it comes back, it's bad for their redemption." As she would say, "Okay, let's do a therapy session." As Mugman and Cuphead would both go, Charlie would say, "Why are you both coming?" "Because we're brothers. We always do stuff together." Charlie would say, "Well, that might be some codependency that we should work on." As they sit with therapy, Sir Pentus would join in, as they would all begin to talk and share their feelings. As Cuphead and Mugman were a bit bored by this, they would doze off from time to time. Therapy and all this stuff was just boring, and honestly, they wanted to go back. They wanted to go home. They wanted to go on more adventures, and they just wanted to have fun again. But even though the hotel was mostly boring, there was still some interesting characters. As one day, Mugman and Cuphead were walking around, Sir Pentus would say, "Hey, do you want to have a good time? Me and Angel and Cherry want to go out." As Mugman and Cuphead would agree, as then they would go to some club. As Angel was just there because he had to be, Sir Pentus wanted to get with Cherry, and Cuphead and Mugman, well, the only reason that they were really there was just so they could have fun. And it was some fun. Cuphead and Mugman would drink and pour drinks into their faces and do cool party tricks for people, but it wasn't too exciting. They needed someone to fight, a bad guy to punish, or even a good guy at this point, but they couldn't find anyone. It seemed so boring. It seemed like nothing to do here. When suddenly they would see something that would catch their eye. It was Valentino. Now, they didn't really know him. Angel brought him up every once in a while, but they didn't know what he looked like. So not like he brought any alarm bells, but then he would see Valentino grab onto Angel and force him onto his lap. As Angel would push back, they would start to argue like in canon. But this time, Mugman would say, "Let my friend go." Cuphead would say, "Yeah." As then Angel would say, "Guys, don't get involved, As suddenly Cuphead would launch something from his finger, hot liquid. As it would hit Valentino in the face, he would fall down. His face would be permanently burnt. Valentino would stand up. Cuphead would say, "Oh, sorry. Usually when you use that move, it just kind of like bounces off in a cartoony way. I didn't really mean to." Suddenly, Valentino would say, "Shut up," as he would pull out his weapon and blast it at Cuphead. Cuphead would dodge it and blast more hot liquid at Valentino, as he would use chains to block it. As then he would chain around Angel and begin to drag him away, as Cuphead and Mugman would run in and jump on Valentino, knocking him down. As Valentino would try to fight them, he was no match, as Valentino was only pushed further and further back. As then he would stand up and pull out his phone and call the Vees. As the battle continued, eventually Vox and Velvet would show up, as a massive showdown was about to happen. But then, just then, Angel would say, "Stop, stop," as he cried, "Please, look at all the damage you're doing over me." As Cuphead would say, "I'm sorry, it's just," as he would look, they were all gone. As Cuphead would say, "How'd they leave?" Mugman would say, "I don't know." As then, they would take Angel back, as he was upset and scared of what Valentino would do to him. They knew they had to take him out now, as then they would both go to the studio. But the studio was closed. No one was there. It was like they knew they were coming, which I guess made sense. They just got into a big fight. As Cuphead would say, "Wow, I guess he left." Mugman would say, "Where do you think he went?" As they began to search the studio to look for any signs, any evidence, they couldn't find anything. After searching and searching and searching, eventually they would try to leave, when suddenly the door would slam shut. As Mugman and Cuphead got ready to knock down the door, suddenly electricity would appear all over the floor, as they'd just barely be able to jump away in time. As Vox would show up, so would Velvet and Valentino. As then many guards with weapons would show up too, as Vox would say, "You guys are idiots. You really thought you would just storm this place and wipe us out?" As suddenly, they would all laugh, as then the guards would blast their weapons. As Mugman and as weapons and everything were fired, loud noises were heard everywhere, as they could barely hear themselves think. As they would both get into the groove of things, they were both natural warriors, as they both fought them all, blasting each one down, as each guard fell to the floor, being melted with hot liquid again and again and again, until eventually it was time to fight the final bosses. As Vox would use his electricity to try to hit them, they would all jump up and begin to blast Vox. Vox was a little bit more resistant, since he had a screen for a face and wasn't really organic, but he still took a lot of damage. As they continued the battle, Val would try to blast them with his blasters, as Velvet would heat up the room, making them so they had to jump to place. This was exciting, as they truly enjoyed it. It reminded them of their old days, as Cuphead would say, "Is this fun, Mugman?" Cuphead would say, "Yep," as they both laughed, as then they would start to sing. They sung about how they felt. They sung about being trapped here, but then they sung about enjoyment, pleasure, fun, battle. As they sang and sang and sang, they enjoyed every second of it. Even though their lives were in danger, even though they were fighting against the odds, this was who they are. And there was no change in that. And they enjoyed every second of being here, every second of this hotel, every second of this battle, every second that could have been their last. The thrill began to shoot through their body, as in Cuphead and Mugman would begin to power up a massive blasting right at Val. Valentino would be able to dodge at last second, but then it would hit Vox, as he would fall to the floor, his face completely burnt, his screen glitching, as Vox would then try to shoot electricity everywhere. As then Mugman and Cuphead would charge in, as Velvet would try to attack them, so would Valentino. This was it. This was the final attack. This was them trying to win. They both knew the only way to win was to put all of their strength into this attack. As Mugman and Cuphead launched all of their liquid right at Valentino, burning him alive. As then Vox would try to blast him, Mugman would jump up and punch him to the floor, as they would both blast him with pure heat. This heat would be enough to melt their bodies. But they needed an angelic weapon to wipe them out, but they didn't know that, as they laid there, about to respawn, until Vaggie would appear, and then stab them all. As then, Cuphead and Mugman would say, "What are you doing?" Vaggie would say, "I told you not to cause more trouble. But you're doing this on Angel's behalf, weren't you? Just follow me." As Vaggie began to walk back to the hotel, Mugman and Cuphead shook a bit. They didn't want to be in trouble. As they both went to the hotel, Angel was sitting there. As he looked, he was shocked that someone would go through all the trouble just for him, and that Valentino was really defeated. They defeated not one, not two, but 3 overlords. That was insane. How powerful were these guys? as Angel just stared at them, not really knowing what to say. He would simply go up and hug them both and say, "Thank you. I appreciate it." As then he smiled, as Cuphead said, "Well, what are you going to do now that you can't film nasty films?" As then Mugman would punch Cuphead, as he would go, "Ow, brother!" As then Angel would say, No, that's fair. I don't know, but I guess I'll just stay here. After all, I kind of enjoy it here." Angel would then go upstairs, as Husk would say, "Well, good job, you two. You actually," as then Cuphead would say, "Shut up, kitty. Give me a drink." Mugman would say, "Yeah, drink. As then Husk would sigh and say, "You had to ruin it." As then he would start to serve them drinks. As they enjoyed their time there, they both simply just sat back and drank. As even though this place was boring at first, strange and weird, they ended up liking it here. And the people here were kind of nice, even though it was hell. They were rough on the edges, but they had a sensitive side to them, and they enjoyed that. It seemed like their lives were getting good, but they still wanted to go back home. Even though this place was nice, they missed their home a lot, but it seemed like there would never be a way. Until one day, Lucifer himself would visit, as then he would say, Charlie, how long have these people been here?" "A couple months. Why?" "Oh, wow, you really didn't know?" Charlie would say, "What? I need to tell you about other dimensions," as he would walk to them both and say, "Hey guys, you're not from here, are you?" Cuphead would say, no. Then Cuphead would say, "No, we're not." As then Lucifer would say, "Well, time to bring you back." As Mugman would go, "Are you really the devil? Shouldn't you be scarier? Horns, hairy?" Lucifer would say, "Hairy? I expected the horn part, but I don't know about that hairy part. Anyway, I have a few conditions for you." As Mugman would say, "We're not doing your dirty work. We've learned our lesson. Don't make a deal with the devil." As Lucifer would say, No. I just want to party with you guys, because Charlie says I need to get out more, and I'll make it so you can come back anytime. Deal?" As Mugman would say, "All right, but no funny business." As then Lucifer, Mugman, and Cuphead would walk out. As Charlie would say, "Did my dad just make new friends? I'm so proud of him." Vaggie would say, "At least he'll be out of our hair. But they were fun, I will give them that." As then Lucifer, Mugman, and Cuphead went out on the town. Then they would all start to enjoy themselves. Cuphead and Mugman were skeptical of this. After all, he was a devil, and they didn't have a good track record with that. But Lucifer was nice, he was kind, he was goofy, and he was kind of good to them. They were confused and not trusting at first, but after a few hours they would start to warm up to him, as they would go on to different areas and enjoy each other's company. As Lucifer would then say, "So, do you guys like it here?" Cuphead would say, "Yeah, it's fun here. I like the battles." As Mugman would say, "Yeah, we fought 3 overlords." Lucifer would say, "You did what?" "Yeah, maybe I should get you out of here faster, but I can't deal with that. Can I ask you guys a question?" Mugman would say, "Sure." Lucifer would say, "Yeah." Cuphead would say, "She talks about you all the time. She really does love you." Lucifer would say, "Yeah, thank you." As then he would smile. "I worry about her sometimes, but the fact that she can make friends like you makes me worry more. You guys are freaks." Cuphead would say, "Hey, I'm just being honest. All right, I think we should send you home soon." As then they would all walk back to the hotel, as Lucifer would look at them, as they would look back at him. "Are you guys ready to go?" Cuphead would nod, as then he would open a portal, as then they would walk out of it, as Lucifer would give them a necklace that make them come back anytime they wanted, as the portal closed. As Charlie said, "You guys do?" Lucifer would go, "Oh, just had fun, did some manly things here and there. You wouldn't get it." As Charlie would laugh and say, "Okay, Dad." And then Lucifer and Charlie would hug. That's going to leave things off. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share with all your friends. I hope you all enjoyed this video. I know I did. Cuphead and Mugman are such fun characters. And I remember when the game was just everywhere, and then the show came out, and people are still waiting for the next season. If you want to see the next season of the show, let me know down in the comments below. Hope you had a good day. I know I did. Peace out.